Hello, good afternoon to you all, and thank you for watching this video. We are very sorry we could not be there in person. However, at the same time, we are very thankful to the organization of Yozikai to let us have this communication at least by video. Our work is a perspective of games for people with physical disability. My name is Alexander. I am a student of the Universidade Federal do ABC in Brazil, and my advisors and co-writers of this work are João Paulo Góes and André Luiz Brandão. Well, we believe it's a common sense here that people with physical disabilities have to pass through many obstacles to conduct their lives. Researchers in game development have been looking for solutions for this problem. Solutions, for example, involving the rehabilitation and accessibility of these people. What our work does is to review the solution of these researchers. A key point to understand our work and the work of these researchers is the concept of natural user interface, which is the name given to interfaces between human and machines so that when the users are controlling the devices, they feel like performing familiar actions. In other words, it's like the device is part of the human body. Natural user interface is key point for games for people with physical disabilities because this kind of interaction offers solutions or alternatives for these people to control the devices. This kind of interface can be done, for example, with robotic arms, motion capture studios. However, our focus here is in the low-cost technology. For example, using sensors like Microsoft Kinect, Nintendo Wii, and so on. So, it's a fact that researchers are conducting studies with games with natural user interfaces for people with physical disabilities. However, how they're doing this is the focus of our work. Our work can be classified as a systematic review, which are searches that follow a specific protocol. Systematic reviews are very common in the medicine field. We follow the protocol of Barbara Kitchen, who brought the systematic review from the medicine to the computer science. She says that the review has to be directed by a research question, which in our case is how are researchers conducting studies with natural user interface games and people with physical disabilities. We formulated this question by a previous manual search, which we made in 71 articles in the literature and which gave us some background to start studying. With this manual search, we could also formulate a search string, and we used this string to make a automatic search in different scientific databases. This search returned us 1,485 articles, which we refined by following a conjunct of criteria, which we also defined by our manual search, and after refining, we could have 93 articles to start analyzing. We then subdivided our research question in many minor questions that regard to the object of the study, what device was used, what were the main benefits of the study, how the users accept the game and the method, what was the cause of the disability of the user, the theme of the game, what was the origin of the game, what was the equipment used, and what were the main limitations of the study, and additional notes. Why is that important? Because then we can start confronting the data, the results from these questions, to make graphics, for example. Here, from a very general perspective, we can see that the interest of researchers in this kind of study is increasing with the time. It's interesting because in 2008 it was published the first article that used a low-cost natural user interface device to make a game for people with physical disability. And from this date, the number of publications start to grow. That's why the low-cost devices are important, because they made possible more works to be published and more studies to be done. The results in general are also very good. They help or in the quality of life of users, or at least they provide to doctors important information about the health of the patients that are passing through rehabilitation. And we can also see that 85% of the 93 articles we analyzed focus on the rehabilitation of people. Only 11% focus on accessibility. And most of works focus in the stroke as a cause of the disability. So we can see that there is a better state of art focusing on rehabilitation and stroke. We suggest that this state of art, the know-how gained with this, can be used for works focusing on accessibility, for example. We could also note that the researchers are conducting their studies led by three main directions, which are the motivation of the user when playing the game, the feedback that the games give to the users, and the intervention used in the method. From the works we analyzed, 55% made tests with users. And these tests, almost all the users had a good acceptance toward the methods. In other words, they enjoyed and felt motivated by playing the game. So the motivation aspect of games is very used by the researchers to bring more users to participate in tests or to pass through the treatments they need to their rehabilitation. We could note also three more important points in the studies we analyzed. The first one is that most of the researchers preferred to make a game from scratch rather than adapting a commercial game to the people with physical disabilities. And when they develop games, they prefer to make a free sim game rather than make a game that's related to the people with disabilities. Also, we could see that in the limitations, one of the most pointed limitations were about the design of the game. But then we had the question, why the researchers prefer to develop a game since the beginning with free team? Well, to start making a relationship among answers from different contexts, we used the concept of a cloud map. In this cloud map, we compiled all the answers so that if an answer appears in the context close to another answer, they also appear close in the map. And if they appear more frequently, they appear in a red context. And if they appear less frequently, they appear in a blue or green context. From this map, we could see that the studies when the users they sympathized with the methods, they had a better acceptance, they were close to games that had free sim and were developed with the study, and much more far from games that were adapted and that related to the people with disabilities. Why this happens? Well, in many studies, the users, people with physical disabilities, they mention that they don't want to be remembered about what they can't do. Commercial games are not usually designed to this public, so the feedback it provides to the user is, if you can complete a task, is a good feedback. If you can't, the game usually says you can't, so it's a bad feedback. But people with physical disabilities, they know what they can't do. The game doesn't need to explicit it. That's why most of the researchers, they prefer to develop a game since the beginning, so that they can make the design of the game focusing on this kind of people. And they preferred free teams that do not relate to people with disabilities because of that, to avoid offending these people. Regarding the intervention on the studied methods, we could reinforce the importance of the low-cost equipment, which are the most used type of equipments in the studies. We could also see that among the devices, Nintendo Wii was the most used. However, we could see also that the developed games were much more related to Microsoft Kinect and the adapted commercial games to Nintendo Wii. We suggest that the tools for developing for Kinect are more accessible to developers than the tools to develop to Nintendo Wii. Researchers also defended the use of sensors that capture the movements of the whole body, such as infrared sensors, rather than equipments that are close to joystick, like Nintendo Wii, because by capturing the whole body, the game can provide more information to the doctor. Moreover, in interventions where the user have to hold the controller, many of the old users can have problems such as arthritis and similars. Just like we did a cloud map for our answers, we made another cloud map for the whole test in all the articles. And here we could see clearly that works focusing on finger rehabilitation or hand functions are very separated from the rest of the work. That's because there is still a lack of technology for capturing movements of the hands and fingers. We suggest that for this type of interventions, researchers can use specific devices such as LeapMotion or recently built devices such as Kinect V2. Finally, we could see that by many reasons, interventions that used multiplayer games had a better acceptance of the users than interventions that used single player games. Alright, so the objective of our work was to give a perspective on how researchers are conducting studies with games and people with physical disabilities. For this, we made a systematic review and we've got some conclusions. Among them are that the concept of natural user interface is a key point for developing for this public. This is a growing interest among the researchers. The number of publications is still growing. There are much more research focusing on the rehabilitation of these people than on accessibility. The motivational aspect of games are usually explored in this kind of research. Researchers usually prefer to develop a game since the scratch rather than adapting it from a commercial context, and make games with free theme than themes related to the people's disabilities. That's for avoiding offending the users. And usually sensors are more effective than joysticks for this kind of research. There is still a low usage of devices for finger and hand rehabilitations due to a lack of technology. And usually interventions with multiplayers are more effective than single player. We have here our references, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be here online for answering any questions you may have, and thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening. Bye bye.